My name is Indi Sinclair, and this is Chance for Her. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Indi Sinclair, and if you are new here, then welcome to Chance for Her. No matter who you are, where you are, or why you came, I am just so happy that you are here. Chance for Her is a podcast rooted in growth and just self-love and doing and unlearning all the things that we've learned throughout our matriculation of life. I don't want what I used to pray for. A sentence that I've replayed in my head time and time again, really over the past 12 to 18 months since graduating from Spelman College. I think life has this interesting way of putting us in spaces and places and giving us experiences where we feel that once I've done X, Y, and Z are supposed to follow, right? So once I've done one thing, X, Y, Z is supposed to follow. And it's crazy because I think back in time for myself and how that's applicable to me. There was a point in my life where I thought that I was going to play Division I softball. There was a point in my life where I thought that I was going to attend Spelman College for 3 years and then go to Syracuse Law for another 3 years, and then I'd be a lawyer. There was a point in my life where I wanted to be a fashion designer, creative director, singer, dancer, model, the whole nine. I wanted to do everything, but above all else, I wanted structure. I wanted to be able to complete tasks in life, move through life, and arrive at a structure, arrive at a building, arrive at a title, arrive at a job, arrive. And what I've learned or am learning throughout all of this is that sometimes life puts you on a path and on a track where you're not meant to arrive at a structure, but you're meant to build your own. And that, I think, has been and is still a really hard pill for me to swallow, because you complete so many things, you meet so many people, you experience all these things, and you're left with this emptiness of like, what am I supposed to do with all of this stuff? And I think for me, when it comes to building my structure, while I know that like I'm still figuring it out and I'm still figuring out, okay, like what am I gonna do and how am I gonna do it and where is it gonna be done, I understand that the work that's being done in silence is more powerful than me forcing myself to arrive at a structure, to arrive at a building, to claim a title that was not written for me. I think it's also important that we touch on the fact that success, when not being as linear as, say, going to law school or going to be a doctor or going to be a financial analyst, and while all these professions are necessary and very important, it's very different when your success doesn't look as linear as maybe those routes or tracks do. It's not just as black and white as I'm gonna go to the school, take the test, pass the test, and now I'm X, Y, Z. It takes those experiences to mold and shape what that looks like for yourself. But I think the question is raised, what happens when success stops looking the part? What happens when success doesn't align with the social media norms or the societal norms? What happens when the applause gets quiet, when the applause turns silent, and when you're literally faced with trying to build your own structure from the ground up? And I think one of the important things that I'm learning or have learned through all of this is, well, I guess two things. One, the only reason why we face seasons and go through seasons in life where the silence seems louder or while the applause starts to dim is because we ourselves have stopped clapping for ourselves too. And I realized that after I finished college, that I had stopped giving myself the validation that I was seeking from everybody else. I had stopped clapping for myself. I had stopped being the coach, the team, and the cheerleader, and was sitting on the sidelines waiting for my life to happen. And unfortunately, life does not work that way. Social media is meant to glorify all of the positives, all of the highlights, all of the spaces, places, people, and things that you encounter throughout your life. But social media doesn't talk about that success when it doesn't look the part. So I encourage you, like if you are into social media, if you are LinkedIn crazy, how I was at one point in time, that you speak about and post about and share about the times and moments where success does not look as linear or as flashy as it would if you were trying to put it on Instagram or social media. And I think all those things, when we talk about going to a structure and building our structure and X, Y, Z, all those things are rooted in this underlying desire to have stability, to be stable in life. it starts when you're young, right? Your parents tell you when you graduate, whether you're going to college or not, when you become an adult, where you working, how much money you making, when you're going to get the house, when you're going to get married, when you're going to have the babies, when you're going to start your life. But social media and family influence and friends influence and society, okay, in hindsight, has convinced us that stability is more important than self-fulfillment. That it's more important for you to go get that six-figure job, that it's more important for you to sit at the desk and do something that brings you nothing but just anger every single day, as long as the bills are paid, as long as the car is paid, as long as the lights are on. And that is such a terrible, terrible way to live. I heard a quote the other day that said, you work at your 9 to 5 so that can support your, I think, 5 to 9 or something like that. It was, Point being, what you do in your day in and day out, sometimes you have to do the things that you don't want to do so that you can do the things that you want to do ultimately. Or sometimes you have to do the things that you have to do so that you can do the things that you want to do. But you can't confuse stability with fulfillment, because fulfillment is rooted in your why, not your how. And I think a lot of times we go through life the other way around. We go through life trying to navigate it backwards. So we start with how. How am I going to make $1 million? How am I going to support a family? How am I going to be successful? How am I going to move out of Atlanta? How? And we don't start with why. That's also a really, really, really good book. If y'all haven't heard of it or read it before, it's called Start With Why. You should tap in. My mentor told me about it, and apparently it changes lives. Point being, you have to be rooted in your why. Your why is going to carry you through life. Your why is the reason why you've had so many experiences and so forth in life that have placed you exactly where you are. But the moment you start with your how, you will never be fulfilled. You'll constantly be chasing that level of stability stability to be successful. So moving into, I think, the next part, because I led with, I don't want what I used to pray for. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that grief comes with the loss of anything. The loss of people in the flesh, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of something that you thought was going to be, and it's not. Grief is relevant. Grief is prominent in prayer. When you have spent so much time asking for the same things over and over and over in your life, and you hit a point in your life where you realize that God is telling you that that's not where you're meant to go, you're allowed to grieve that process. You're allowed to grieve the fact that you're not going to end up where you thought you were going, but you're also allowed to acknowledge and celebrate the fact that where you thought you were going is not where you're going to end up. I think we're all rooted in this idea of stability and of security, but another word being certainty. We want things in life to be linear. We want the map in front of our face so that we know how to embark on the journey. But what happens is this: ego is rooted in certainty. There's this, I think, trend or conversation that has been going on a lot for a while regarding the death of the ego. And at first I thought, how any trending topic circulates, that it was something that, people had thought about, it came, it went, and now it left. And now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it and trying to apply it to this conversation, I'm understanding to the fact that that certainty is rooted in ego. That feeling like you should have everything figured out, feeling like things should be linear, straightforward, on a straight and narrow path, that one thing should happen right after the next, or that you are owed something, is rooted in ego. And this past year, this past 12 to 18 months, I have literally had to strip myself of my ego. In translation, I've had to strip myself of all that I thought I was and rebuild myself brick by brick for all that I truly am, rooted in my why. On the contrary, or on the other side, trust is rooted in growth. When you reach a place in life where you understand that things are not going to go the way that you expect them to go, or things are not going to go as, skippy nippy as they typically would, you understand that you have to trust the process. And I think, vulnerable enough, transparent enough to acknowledge the fact that trusting the process is one of the hardest things that you can do in life. Trusting that everything is working out for your good is one of the hardest things that you can do in life. But that's rooted in growth, not rooted in ego. So just make sure, as you're sitting and if this applies to you and you're in this season of your life where you're trying to figure out what's next, but you understand that you don't align or you no longer want the things that you used to pray for, that you are also praying for the heart and the mindset to be able to trust the process and for overall growth. I stopped posting as much. I stopped talking about the things that I was doing as much. I stopped feeling the need to broadcast the things that I was doing as much because confidence is silent. Confidence is rooted in being quiet. Confidence is rooted in trusting the process so much that you don't have to speak for your work. Your work speaks for itself. But I think we all have become, or our generation, my generation has become very wired to believe that you have to broadcast every time you do something worthwhile to keep up with everybody else. When in reality, my race is not your race is not my race. And if you arrive to point A before I make it to point A, maybe I made it to point A a while ago and didn't even acknowledge the fact that I had already made it there. I've sat with myself a lot since graduating, and I've been asking myself, when is it going to be my time to win again? When is it going to be my time to have something stellar to share with social media, to share with my followers? Because in my mind, I'm thinking people are waiting. When in reality, these people are not worried about you. And if they are, that's problematic because they're not focused enough on themselves. I think that you have multiple wins in life. You experience multiple highs and multiple lows in life. But just because you're not currently experiencing a high doesn't mean that one is not on the way, and it doesn't mean that one has not already taken place. It might not just be your time yet. Maybe it's time for you to win and for me to sit back and admire, or maybe it's time for you to win while I'm building my structure. Maybe you've been working for 10, 15 years to build your structure and I'm only seeing what you're putting out. So I'm starting to compare and contrast, and you just cannot do that. You just cannot do that. Like I said, you literally have to strip yourself of all that you thought you were and rebuild yourself brick by brick for all that you truly are, because ego requires a witness. Ego needs somebody in the comments, in the likes, sharing your post, sending it around to people, catch you in the hallway, telling you that they saw what you just put out in X, Y, and Z, because ego needs validation. When in reality, the only validation, like I said, that should matter should be yours. If I love it and you hate it, I'ma still love it. But if I love it and you hate it and I start to hate it, then that means I never actually loved it because it was never rooted in my why. So you're probably asking, okay, Indi girl, we know that you no longer want X, Y, and Z. You used to pray for X, Y, and Z, and you no longer want X, Y, and Z. So what do you want? And the honest to God answer is, I don't know. I'm still figuring out every single day. But the reality of the situation is that I've stopped praying for certainty and started praying for the capacity to receive whatever is meant to come my way. I've stopped praying for a map to get me through where I'm going in life and started to pray for the tools to be fully equipped with wherever I'm meant to go in life. And lastly, I've stopped praying to keep up with everybody and started praying to remain grounded in my power and rooted in my power and to walk in my power and stop worrying about what everybody else is doing. So I hope that you can take something from this episode, whether it's you felt something I was saying, I sparked a new idea in you. Nonetheless, we're all human. We're all allowed to go through different seasons, reasons, phases in life. But the biggest thing is understanding that as long as you're growing, you're going to be going somewhere. Nonetheless, always remember that the light that you seek in this world is always within you. It's just up to you to find it. My name is Indi Sinclair, and this is Chance for Her.